Hey YouTubers, it's Charlie. So for my Game of Thrones bonus video this week, I'm going to talk all about Brynden Rivers, the Bloodraven. You also probably know him as the Three-Eyed Raven. Just careful for spoilers for everything that's happened on the show so far, and there is a new round of the giveaway that starts now. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and leave a comment on this video. So in case you missed the news earlier this year, Max von Sydow has been recast as the Three-Eyed Raven, that person that's helping train Bran underneath the giant weirwood. Why did they recast the character if they already had somebody at the end of Season 4? Well, there's a number of reasons that Game of Thrones recasts roles. One, the actor that played the character previously isn't available because they did something crazy, or they passed away, or they're too ill. Or two, they've expanded the part and they need someone that they feel like is a stronger actor. My guess is that we're going to see a whole lot of Three-Eyed Raven scenes, and there's going to be a big speaking part, so they wanted to get a much bigger actor. Enter Max von Sydow. Now I know I put up this Ming picture, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the character is evil. There's definitely a lot of book theories about where the Three-Eyed Raven's allegiance lies, to the Great Other, to the Red God, to the Old Gods. Technically, them being green seers, I would think that their loyalty is to the Old Gods. Now the Three-Eyed Raven has had a bunch of different names. He lived a very long life as a mortal man. For the largest part of his life, and like this last big chunk, he's been living as a Three-Eyed Raven though. He was born the bastard Brynden Rivers to Melissa Blackwood and Aegon Targaryen IV. That was the Targaryen that had 6 mistresses, a whole bunch of bastards that sparked the first Blackfire Rebellion. So just placing him in the timeline with other big characters that Martin has written stories about, he predates Dunk and Egg. But even though he's around doing things in Westeros during the time Dunk and Egg's story is happening, they don't really cross paths, like he's not really part of those stories. The Dunk and Egg stories mostly just follow Dunk and Egg and the people that they interact with. Now later in life, he went to the Wall, became Lord Commander, then became the Three-Eyed Raven. But for the earliest part of his life, he was only known as Brynden Rivers. The reason he's called the Bloodraven is because as a child, he was born with this birthmark over his face. Even though he was a great warrior, he kind of opted for more scholarly pursuits, so he gained powers of magic. Like he gained the power to glamour himself, make himself look like other people. Think of him as being like a combination of Samwell and his younger brother. Like very studious, but also a very good warrior. So the first big saga of his life is the Blackfire Rebellion. I've already done a video about that, so I'll put a link in the description. The bastard that started the Blackfire Rebellion was Daemon Blackfire, Brynden's half-brother by another woman. There's always a lot of resentment when it comes to bastards, especially when a king has a number of sons. He's always going to favor one son more than the other. So Brynden Rivers was one of those more favored sons. So Aegon IV gave a Valyrian blade, Dark Sister, to Brynden Rivers. Dark Sister was the Valyrian blade that originally belonged to Visenya Targaryen. She was one of the sister wives of Aegon I, Aegon the Conqueror. He also gave the Sword of Succession, the Blackfire ancestral Valyrian blade, to Daemon Waters, not to his legitimate heir that he had with his wife. All kinds of resentment and drama amongst all the brothers, bastards and legitimate. And for those that are asking, the whereabouts of Dark Sister are still unknown. Like Bittersteel took Blackfire, the ancestral Targaryen blade, the other big Valyrian blade. But later in life, when Brynden Rivers went to the Wall, nobody knows if he took Dark Sister with him, so the blade's whereabouts are completely unknown. Wouldn't it be cool though if it's somewhere underneath that weirwood? There might be a Valyrian blade somewhere nearby, so keep your eyes peeled. The second big era in his life was when he served as Hand of the King to multiple Targaryen kings. Now the person to name him Hand of the King wasn't originally the brother that he sided with during the Blackfire Rebellion, but he did serve on that brother's small council. So you could look at it as a reward for siding with the crown, like hey, you sided with us instead of siding with the Blackfire, so we're gonna name you to the small council. That Targaryen king died, his successor became Aerys I. That person was the one to name him Hand of the King. Maker I eventually became king, he served through his reign. Then when he died, Brynden Rivers, acting as Hand of the King, called a great council to decide who should be the next king. There was this big issue of succession. Eventually Aegon V was chosen. Now we know him as Egg from the Dunk and Egg series, so like little Egg here was Aegon V. Because of some shadiness that happened at that great council, Aegon V, Egg, had Brynden Rivers imprisoned and thrown in the black cells. What happened is that the Blackfires were still a big thing in the East, and they wanted to treat peacefully with the crown, like they wanted to bury the hatchet. But when one of the Blackfires arrived to treat with the Great Council, he was arrested by the Goldcloaks and beheaded. So no hatchet being buried there. The Blackfires still hate the crown. Later, Egg gave him the option of taking the Black. He accepted, so he went to the Wall. Within about 6 years of that, he became Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. So Brynden Rivers, who was the Bloodraven, became part of the Small Council, then Hand of the King, then became Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, but after about 13 years as Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, disappeared while ranging north of the Wall. That was almost 50 years before the events of what's happening on the show right now. So presumably when he disappeared north of the Wall, he was just embracing what he thought was his path as the last Greenseer. Think of him as being like Benjen Stark before Benjen Stark existed, although Benjen Stark is not a Greenseer. You just go north of the Wall one day, ranging, disappear, never to be seen again. Now, I think I've said it before, but the interesting thing is that when he went to the Wall originally, when Brynden Rivers took the Black, went to the Wall, he was also accompanied by Maester Aemon, who at the time took the Black because there were way too many Targaryen heirs at the time. Maester Aemon was one of Aegon V's brothers. He was originally chosen as a candidate to become a future king during that big great council, but he ceded to his younger brother Aeg. So in previous seasons, when we heard Maester Aemon talk to Jon Snow about duty to family, like when Jon hears what happened to Ned Stark, what's going on with Robb Stark, he wants to go help them. Maester Aemon's like, I know exactly what you're going through. I had to watch the downfall of my family at the hand of the Mad King. Now that doesn't even begin to get into Greensight, all the things that he's going to be doing with Bran Stark in Season 6. But just in case you're not sure, there's skin changing and then there's Greensight. So the ability to skin change is something that's passed down genetically amongst people with DNA from the First Men. It's like a First Men thing. But I think the number's like 1 in every 1,000 people that are born with the ability to skin change are also born Greenseers. That's also genetic, but being born a skin changer is a very rare thing. The chances of being born a Greenseer are almost impossible, so it's incredibly rare. That's why until Bran comes along, the Bloodraven is called the last Greenseer. Skin changing just allows you to quote-unquote wear the skins of other biological creatures. Greensight is a much more broad spectrum power over nature. There's some really cool things that I don't want to spoil ahead of Season 6. We might end up opening Season 6 with like a really special Greensight sequence, so stay tuned for that. But if you want to read more about Bran learning about Greensight in the Three-Eyed Raven, then reread Dance with Dragons. That's when most of those chapters happen. Here's my big question for you guys. Let me know in the comments. Do you think that they're going to address this big grand history that the Bloodraven has had? Or do you think it's going to be like they did with Maester Aemon, where he just references it like, I have had to witness a lot of very sad history in my family? There are a lot of shows that do that, like kind of brush over a lot of history with a really simple turn of phrase. Sometimes it's effective, sometimes it kind of sucks. I think a really good example of it is during the Flash Season 1 when Barry's confronting the Reverse Flash and he asks him flat out, why have you done all this? Why are you trying to hurt my family? Why do you hate me so much? And the Reverse Flash really coldly just replies, it doesn't matter. So be prepared for the show, and even the books for that matter, to not fully explain things. Most of the history of the Bloodraven is covered in the expanded materials. Like if you read World of Ice and Fire and then you read the Dunk and Egg series, like you hear about a lot of things happening in and around his life. I think Winds of Winter is going to be a really big book for that character, so odds are if we're going to learn more about his history, it's going to happen in that book. Still crossing my fingers on a late March, early April release on Winds of Winter. Well, hopefully it'll drop like right before Season 6 of Game of Thrones drops. But congratulations to last week's giveaway winner, Blue Sky. You win a $20 Amazon gift card. Be sure to private message me on the back end of my channel so I can get your contact info. What's going to happen next is we are like dangerously close to viral trailer territory. We got the teaser for Jon Snow last week from HBO, so just expect more cryptic teasers in the next couple of weeks. First trailer though, do not expect that before February. Just in case you haven't seen it, I did a whole big video about that Jon Snow teaser that HBO released. You can click here to learn all about that, and you can click here for last night's mid-season finale from Walking Dead. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Let's high five. I'll see you guys tonight.